What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and we are going to be breaking down 3 routes today that all wide receivers need to know. So the first route we're going to be discussing is going to be something called a fake throw-by dig route. So this is a great route that you have to run, especially out of the slot, and you're facing a DB who's lined up in outside leverage. So essentially what we're trying to sell is we were trying to sell an out route using a throw-by at the top of the break. So if we're faced with like this type of coverage, right? Like let's say we have a DB who's outside leverage, maybe sitting about 6 to 7 yards away, and you have to run like a 10-yard out route, right? So like game plan on that route, what you normally could do is you could attack that DB's leverage for 6 to 7, and then you take this inside release, and maybe you work to stack him where you're over the top. But if you can't stack the DB and he's right next to us at the break point, what we'd have to do is we'd have to take my outside arm, put it on his back, swat him by, drop my hips, and cut underneath. So if we're running a dig route, I mean, a way you could run a dig route is you could attack his leverage, take the inside release, and then go run your dig. But this is a more creative way to do it, and a way I feel you could get more separation. So what you would do is you would attack this DB's inside shoulder and inside hip like this wide receiver does here. He takes kind of this like inside stem on the dig route. You don't necessarily have to do that. You could go straight at his inside shoulder and straight at his inside hip if you want. The stem is probably something that they have to do within their playbook. So at the break point, you would want to drop your hips, put your hand on the DB's back, either the back of his shoulder, back of his hip, or maybe even the back of his arm. And what you want to do is you want to take, as soon as you drop your hips, you want to take like one jab step to this DB's like blind spot, right? So again, we were trying to sell like we were running a throw by out route to get that DB shooting in the opposite direction, and then I get space and separation over the middle. So this is a great way to run a dig versus outside leverage, off man coverage, or even catch man where he's sitting maybe at 3 to 5 yards away. But again, a more creative way that you guys can get open on a dig route. Are there multiple ways to do it? Absolutely, but I think this is something that could turn a lot of heads and get you separation. So remember, we are trying to sell a throw by out route. We want to run it exactly how you would run your 10-yard out versus this specific type of coverage. So we're going to play at full speed, and then we will get to the next route that we are going to break down that I feel all receivers need to know. Now, before we get into that next route, fellas, if you are a wide receiver or a quarterback watching this video and you would like to train with us, we just released the next 15 states that we're going to be traveling to in 2026 for our 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camp. So, guys, if you want to sign up, if you're local to one of these cities shown on the screen here, go to that very first link in the description below. That's where you can get all the information and where you can sign up. Our next camp is going to be in San Francisco. Then we head out to Orlando, Phoenix, Columbia, South Carolina, Oklahoma City, Seattle, Nashville, Milwaukee, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Denver, Columbus, Boston, Salt Lake City, and finishing it off next year in Los Angeles, California. So again, guys, if you are local to one of these cities and you would like to sign up to train with us, go to that very first link in the description below. Again, all of our camps, guys, last year sold out probably 3 months in advance. So like, for example, the Phoenix camp is in January. That sold out in November. So guys, very first link in that description below, that is where you can sign up. Let's get back to this video. Now, this next route, you guys, is going to be a deep 15-yard corner route versus a DB who's playing outside leverage off-man coverage. So we kind of talked about this on an out route, but now on a corner route, it's a little bit harder to work that like throw-by move. What you want to try to work to do is restack. So we're going to be talking about how you guys can close the distance with the DB and put yourself in a better position to stack over the top of him, which means essentially where this DB is trailing directly behind us and running behind us here. So let's play at full speed, then we'll break it down. So most important thing whenever you're faced with a coverage where like this DB, like this is like a second level release, if you will, right? So like a release, like first level release is where the DB's right on the line of scrimmage. Second level is where he's like at 5 yards. Now, if your route's at 15, you have 10 yards to where you're able to restack if you close the space with the DB. We don't want to just run away from him, and we definitely don't want to try to just run to the outside of him. His whole entire goal being outside leverage is to not let us get to the outside. Don't let us run an out route, a corner route, a slot fade, whatever the case may be. So we got to close the space, get to his toes, and get skinny. The key is getting skinny so I could give my quarterback some space to throw me open and I could get to that restack position. So you see, mindset is I'm going right to his toes. I'm going to attack his leverage once I get to his toes, but I'm closing the space with him fast. And you see when he gives this move, there is not a ton of space between the two of them. If you are a smaller wide receiver, especially out of the slot, and you're going up against a safety or a nickel who's a little bit more physical, a linebacker, you maybe want to give yourself a little bit more space to do this so you don't run into hand contact. It's one of the the most important things for shorter wide receivers when going up against those like safeties, linebackers. Don't get too close, right? But if it's around the same size guy as you, feel free to get maybe like within a yard or a half a yard close to this DB. So he gives this move to the outside. This move is the goal. Like, yes, I would love to break this guy's ankles and make him jump way to the outside, but honestly, I just need him to hesitate, like what he does right here with his outside foot. Because if he hesitates after that move, what I want to do is I want to try to squeeze past the DB with my shoulder and with my hip. I want to get hip to hip with him. So when I get hip to hip with him, that's called getting skinny. And getting skinny allows me to get in that position where he is trailing behind me. But again, I have to close the space first. So now when I'm over the top of him, I give him a move at the top of the break like this rocker step, right? He gives like a triple rocker step, which is essentially you step opposite from where you are going first. You don't necessarily have to do this move. Some programs might think that this move takes too long, which I personally kind of agree with. I think that that's maybe a little bit too much to do at the top of the break, but that's what this receiver does. So he gives just a simple 1, 2, 3 at the top, makes that DB think we're running a post, and then you see the amount of space that he has for the quarterback to lead him because he was comfortable taking the inside release versus outside leverage. Whenever we run an outside breaking route, that does not mean that I have to release to the outside. The DB's leverage dictates what release that I take. Would it be totally fine to just do a 2-step at the top where you just go outside foot, inside foot, and then go? Yes. Reason why he does that 3-step is probably because he likes to use that rocker step often. So you add one more step to it to add a little something extra to your route. But again, you got to make sure it's the right situation for that. If it's like man coverage, QB's only taking a 3-step drop, then you probably don't have the time to work that kind of move, especially with an inside release. But you guys get the concept. So this route can really impress coaches because it shows that you could separate with an inside release. It doesn't matter what release that we take. I'm still able to get separation and still able to run a quarterback-friendly route. And by quarterback-friendly route, I mean giving the quarterback space to lead us. Now, this next route, you guys, is going to be something called a return route. So a return route is the opposite of a whip route. A lot of people don't know this terminology. There's a lot of different names for like whip routes, return routes, pivot routes, right? So a regular whip route is where you would go up like a 3-step slant, you break to the slant, hopefully the DB crashes, and then you whip back out towards the sideline. You keep your hips and your shoulders facing the line of scrimmage. Some people call that a pivot. Some people call that a zig. A return route, and it might be different terminology in your guys' playbook. You just got to know the route. Obviously, the terminology can vary. Would be the opposite, right? Where you're selling an out route and then you keep your hips and your shoulders parallel to the line of scrimmage and you go back to the inside. So this is a great example of that here from this wide receiver. So he bursts up, breaks to the out route, and then he gets in and out of the break and is able to run that whip. Or not the whip, excuse me, the return. It looks a lot like a whip, right? So let's talk about the steps of the break. So anytime that you're working a double move, like let's say it's just a simple out and up, because I'm sure a lot of you guys have an out and up in your playbook. You may not have a return route, but it's the same mechanics that you would do on a whip route or any double move. When you break to the first move, the key is to get this DB to crash down by selling with 3 specific things. Those 3 things are going to be your speed. So when we break to the out route, I can't slow myself down. I can't have a lot of speed, then slow down, because that tells that DB, hey, that's probably not an out route, right? I can't have a long strides into the first break and then take short, choppy strides to the out route because that's not going to sell it. Again, it tells the DB probably not an out route. Expect a double move. And then last but not least, your body language sells it. So it's speed, stride, and body language. And it's really just about frequency, which means keeping it the same. It's got to be the same body language that you had going up into the out route. It's got to be the same speed that you had going up into the out route and the same strides going into the out route. It's about keeping it the same. You don't got to be the fastest guy on the field to get separation like this. Does speed help? Absolutely, but it's not like the be-all, end-all that it needs to be crazy, crazy fast, right? Look at a guy like Tyreek Hill. Gets a ton of separation on his routes, but he rarely ever runs full speed unless the ball is in his hands, okay? So when he breaks to the out route here, he breaks off of his 3rd step. So he breaks and he's taking 3 steps just like how you would take on an out and up, right? Or a slant and go. So he goes 1, 2, 3, starts the break. Now, in a perfect world, what we would like to do is we'd like to snap down on this foot, hook the outside foot around right after the snap, and you want to try to turn your toes perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. So your hips and your shoulders could be there, and you just push off of that foot, and you get out in 2 steps. Now, very hard to do on a return route because essentially you're going 90-90, right? On a whip route, you're going 45 back to 90, so it's a little bit easier to get out in 2 steps on a whip route. So the realistic steps to get out in is probably going to be 4. As long as those 4 steps are fast, I'm not concerned with you taking 2 more extra extra steps. It's when guys waste a lot of time and they like beat the drum and take a bunch of steps, that gives the DB time to recover. But if you guys can drop on the inside foot 2, 3, 4, and you push off of that fourth step to drive, that can get you separation. So a return route is a great route that you can use to impress your coaches, especially if you guys are in a one-on-one setting or a man-to-man coverage setting.